As a media researcher, this can be a really difficult question to answer. Can movies really change people? It's very hard to figure out the impact of anything that's delivered through mass media. A game, a TV show, a film. We have the impression that these things have some impact on us, but we can understand it's very difficult to measure it. So I'm based at the Norman Lear Center. I do media and entertainment research, but lately I've been working with Participant Media. They're a pretty unique film studio. They make films that they hope will actually have a big impact on society. You may recognize some of these titles. They make very beautifully produced, entertaining and engaging feature films and documentary films that grapple with very serious issues. And what they wanted to do is work with the Norman Lear Center in order to figure out whether they could measure the impact of those films. We decided to focus on one, a documentary called Food, Inc., which is about agribusiness in the United States and food safety issues. I'll give you a little taste of what it's like.
If you could grow a chicken in 49 days, why would you want one you got to grow in 3 months?
Sometimes you look at a vegetable and say, okay, well, we can get 2 hamburgers for the same price.
They have managed to make it against the law to criticize their products.
There is an effort to make it illegal to publish a photo of any industrial food operation.
The average consumer does not feel very powerful. It's the exact opposite. When we run an item past the supermarket scanner, we're voting for local or not, organic or not.
Look at the tobacco industry. The battle against tobacco is a perfect model of how an industry's irresponsible behavior should change.
So this isn't exactly a date movie. There's a certain kind of person who will pay to go to a theater to see a really difficult movie like this. And that's one reason that it's especially hard for a media researcher like me to figure out if this film's had an impact, because it would be very hard to put together a nationally representative sample. As you can see in this map, the darker colors indicate a higher concentration of viewers. So imagine how difficult it would be to truly get an average sample of the average Joe American. So what we decided to do is to come up with a really interesting new survey instrument. We posted a link to it on a bunch of participant media sites, and what we did is we didn't mention that the survey was actually about Food, Inc. It was about a bunch of other stuff too. We just told people it was about participant media films. The reason we did that is that we wanted to make sure that we got people who had seen Food, Inc., but we also wanted to get a bunch of people who hadn't seen the movie either. The questions were, as you might imagine, demographic questions, questions about politics, but some of the key questions were asking people how likely it was that they were going to take certain actions that had been recommended in the film. You might be thinking, well, the people who take online surveys, they're a certain kind of person, right? And the people who visit this website, that's a very particular person. It's not an average American. And that's exactly right. And that's exactly what we were looking for. Our survey was tailored to the kind of person who had a high propensity to see this film. What we wanted to do was to go through all of the survey data and figure out what distinctive characteristics of a person would predict a high propensity for them to see the film. And it turned out there were 17. They said in the survey they thought sustainable agriculture was important. They also said that they had spent money or time trying to support efforts to improve food safety. A lot of them said they had an affiliation with the Democratic Party. They had visited the Food, Inc. website. All these things made a lot of sense. They also said that they had seen or heard information about food safety on television, on news sites. They remembered hearing something on the radio. These were tuned-in people. They also turned out to be people who watched a whole bunch of social issue feature films. Think of Syriana and The Help, movies like that, in addition to documentaries like Food, Inc. It turned out they had a high likelihood to have seen An Inconvenient Truth, which was another participant media film, and they had seen, a lot of them had seen, Fast Food Nation. Now we also asked them what they thought about whether films could actually impact somebody's attitudes or behaviors in life. And they said yes to this question. And they also thought that films could have a distinct impact on media coverage. Now, the thing that seems odd here is that there are no demographic traits on this board yet. And that's usually how film marketers try to understand their audience. Age, income, race. You can't tell what race this person is or how old they are. It was a very interesting finding of ours. You can better understand an audience member in a lot of ways if you know about their attitudes, their values, rather than their demographic traits. But we did find 3 demographic traits that were statistically significant, but they're not what you would expect. One of them was they probably don't work in the media industry, okay? They might have a job in education. There was a slight likelihood. And this was a surprising finding for my colleagues at Participant Media. They didn't have any kids. Somebody in the room said, they're child-free. But okay, that's not what we expected. So what we did is we went back to the survey data. We had 20,000 respondents to this survey. That's a lot. And we went back and we looked for all the people who had exactly the same characteristics, the same high propensity to see a movie like Food, Inc., but guess what? They didn't see it. Maybe their date didn't want to go. You can imagine. So these are the people who would be very likely to see Food, Inc., but they didn't. They're like twins separated at birth. And what it allowed us to do is to sort of cleverly concoct something like a classic research study, where you randomly assign people to a treatment group or a control group. And here the treatment was the film. It's all very clever. What we wanted to do is answer this question: did Food, Inc. change people? So we controlled for all of those variables that I listed, and we found out that yes. Yes. It took a lot of math to figure this out, but yes, it did have an impact. First, this twin got a little bit smarter, right? We had a quiz question, inside the survey, and this twin knew more about genetically modified corn than the other twin did. But also, and more significantly, I think, this twin was more likely to encourage their friends, family, and colleagues to learn more about food safety, a very important thing in any communication effort, as you can imagine. They were more likely than their twin to shop at the local farmer's market, and they were more likely to eat healthy food. Now, these 2 behavior changes are huge. These are major things in your life: where you shop, where you spend money on food, what kind of food you buy. This is a huge impact, and we can trace it right back to the film. Now, we kind of expected that we would have a really good result, because there was another question in the survey where we said, would you agree with the statement that this film changed my life? Over half of the people said yes. So we knew we had this deeply engaged group. And fortunately, we had asked an open-ended question, where you fill in a blank. And it was, what suggestions do you have for participant media to help get people more involved in an effort to reform agribusiness? And we had to use data mining software because there were 5,000 responses, and some of them were like full essays. So this demonstrates the frequency of words that appeared, but we did more critical analysis than that. One finding, which was, I guess, not too surprising, is they said, you've got to advertise more. You need to market this film. I almost didn't see it. It was in my Netflix queue. So the second finding was much more surprising, considering this group was child-free. Over and over again, they were saying, you have to show this film in schools. You have to get kids to watch this film, and then they're going to go home, and they're going to tell their parents that they need to change what they buy. It was very interesting, because it wasn't the argument that, well, you need to teach this to kids so that the next generation is better than we are. No. They saw kids as a catalyst for change right now. The third finding was very important to us. What we found is that people who felt empowered after seeing this difficult movie, some people felt overwhelmed. But the people who felt empowered tended to see the connection between the local and the global. They could see how the micro and the macro was connected, individual action and collective action. They could see how their purchasing behavior could actually have an impact on a huge, vast industry like agribusiness. So now, when people come up to me and say, "So you really think the movies can change people?" I am so thrilled that I now have this amazing data set, and I can now confidently say, along with the cow, yes, they can. Thank you very much.